Hello and welcome to another episode of Words with Myself. It doesn't matter who you are. We have all experienced lack at some point, whether that be lacking love, or lacking money, or lacking experience, or something else. We have all had that experience of feeling like we need something which we're not necessarily being given. It doesn't matter if you come from the richest family in the world. There will still be something in your experience that you feel is missing. And maybe as a rich person or a person from a rich family, it could be lacking the struggle altogether. Feeling like everything has been handed to you and there is no achievement to be had, or everything comes too easy. That in itself robbing the person from the very meaning of life itself, to have your own experiences, to put things on the line, to take risks. Challenge yourself. Try to do something which is uncomfortable and difficult for us. And if you've never had that pressure, if you've never had that need to overcome all of these obstacles, you will lack the experience of life and you become separated from the world, trying to preserve what you have. But for many of us, it comes in a much more subtle form. It could be that we felt like we didn't get the love we wanted as a child, or that the attention wasn't there. Maybe you had a parent that was working all the time and couldn't be around, couldn't dedicate their hours to you because they were busy, trying to bring in and provide for the family. Or maybe it was that they were emotionally distant and you felt like you couldn't connect on a level and communicate what you needed to communicate. Maybe it was safety that you lacked and you felt like your home environment wasn't a safe environment. Whatever it was that you felt like you lacked when you were a kid and growing up and right now, wherever that lack exists, if that isn't healed, we end up chasing what we didn't have. And normally we tend to overindulge or overcompensate. We tend to be the opposite of what we didn't have. So let's say that a child grows up in an environment with abusive parents who beat them. And as they grow up and they learn that this wasn't right and that, they shouldn't have had to have sustained this and this isn't a normal environment to grow up in, they then want to create the opposite for their children. They want to make sure that no violence takes place. So they never do anything to their child. They are extremely placid and basically their child ends up growing up with no boundaries being put on it and it becomes spoiled or unable to set boundaries of its own. Because it's often assumed that the opposite of suffering is happiness and bliss. But that's not the case. The opposite of suffering is honestly usually more suffering. Because any time you take an extreme and then you look at the opposite end of the extreme, normally both extremes are bad. Like anywhere at the extreme end of one thing or another is going to create a lack in the opposite direction. If my parents were absent and never around and I felt like they never cared for me, if I then go to the other extreme, I become a helicopter parent and I'm constantly involved and worried about my child and I'm constantly observing them and trying to spend time with them and consuming their experience rather than letting them go and make their mistakes and live their life. If your parents were super strict and boundary driven and you wanted to rebel against that when you were younger because you felt like it was too much and they were trying to control you and force you to make certain decisions in your life, you might go the opposite way with your children and you're too lenient and you don't set healthy boundaries and you don't enforce rules that are in your child's best interests. Because anytime there is intense experience or trauma, we gravitate to the opposite as the solution. We think in our heads like, that was so bad that the opposite must be so much better. Because I never want to go anywhere near that again. So I'm going to go as far away from that as possible. But if I was standing at the end of a seesaw and I felt like I was about to fall backwards and I run to the other end of the seesaw and then that tips over and I feel like I'm going to fall forwards. So I turn around and I run back to the other side and I keep tipping. And it doesn't matter at which end I stop, the perpetual motion is not good for me. I keep going from high to low. I keep tumbling down. And it will only be when you realize that, okay, instead of overcorrecting and panicking all the way to the other side, instead, if I stop when I'm in the middle, when I'm balanced, then I don't have to go through these crazy motions. I'm not being thrown high to low, left to right. I'm actually able to just stop and breathe and relax. Because the idea is not to achieve something good or to avoid something bad. The idea is to be balanced, not too up and not too down, not too heavy, not too light, not too strong, not too weak, not too light, not too dark. But this is something that is seemingly lost, especially in the West. We kind of live for the extremes. You know, we want everything to be really super duper up. We want everything to be really good, and we want to avoid anything bad. And we're almost running from anything negative. We don't want to hear anything that hurts our feelings or says anything that makes us feel negative. We don't want to go through anything that makes us feel weak or tired or exhausted. We want to have good feelings and be on the up. And we're almost expected to maintain a perpetual mood of up. Like, if you're feeling down, somebody will be like, what's wrong with you? You know, how can I change this? How can I make this so that you're not like this anymore? It's not a case of you could just be upset and then somebody be like, oh, you're upset. Is there anything I can do for you? No? Cool. Okay. I'll just sit with you or something like that. It's a constant convincing that the other person needs to feel better. They need to get up to the level. And we do this a lot in our society. You know, we're trying to always stay on the idea of good, 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 and pretend like bad doesn't exist and avoid it until we are absolutely forced to confront it. And we have gone to great lengths to ensure that we don't have to confront it very often. And suffering is often hidden away from us. And we almost have to live in this lie, this pretend game where everything is okay and there's nothing bad going on around. And if something bad is happening, we have to remove it, get it out of eyesight. We have to make sure that the image is preserved, that this is some happy life and that everything is good and we're all good people and there's just a few bad people and we need to make sure that they're removed and kept away from us. When you take a back seat on things and you really open your eyes and just observe, it's quite weird what goes on. Like, it's quite blatant and obvious. And you can kind of just see this make-believe world that a lot of people are conforming to. But so much of the world is fundamentally the opposite and works the opposite way of the way that they tell you it works. And we're kind of just expected to buy into all of these things and pretend like things like taxes are there for the people and that we're all paying this to keep our country afloat. And how all of the financial systems work. And like, if you just stop for 5 minutes and just think like, all of the richest countries in the world are all billions and trillions of pounds in debt. How does that work? Like, where's that money going to? And who are they in debt to? Like, if all of our richest nations are all broke, but at the same time, debt is bad. And if you're in debt, then we're going to punish you for it. And we're going to cripple you because you've made bad money choices. And it's all your fault. And you're expected to pay that back. And if you don't or you can't, everything's going to be taken away from you or you'll be thrown in jail. But then we're also expected to use fractional reserve banking systems where they use all of your money and keep 10% of it and leverage it as debt to you, to broker you and get you to pay more debt, because it's the bank's design and how the bank makes profit to bankrupt you with your own money as a country or as a people. They bankrupt you with money that isn't theirs. They take all of our money and they loan it out and they give credit lines to people and they charge extortionate fees and then they claim it back. And it's not even their money to lend out. It's our money. So in this era of mass deception, where we are constantly having to buy in and believe and put faith in systems that don't have our best interests at heart, that are constantly set up to deceive us and get us to give over our resources or give over our attention or our time or our effort or something, finding balance can seem really hard. And It's never suggested as the option. It is always the extremes in this modern world. We are almost forced into this perpetual state of feeling happy and being good and conforming and obedient and nice. And if you're not one of those things, then you become an outcast. Because the society, in order to keep its image, in order to stay functional, it needs the buy-in of the masses. And if you go against the grain, if you think outside the box, then you must be removed. And this is why so many of us are constantly polling at the extremes. We're forcing ourselves to feel happy and good and attentive and busy and attending work and doing the right thing until we crash and burn out and we end up exhausted or ill, or we feel like we need to lean on things that aren't in our best interest and actually harm us in the long run. And most of the ways people cope are self-destructive and harmful because they're only existing at the extremes. They go from working 24/7 flat out and then end up burnt out and exhausted and then can't get out of bed. But they're not really getting rest because they're not in the position where they can rest. They're just in a position where they're so stressed, so burnt out that they can physically do nothing. They're not recharging. They're just stewing in that stress and burnout. What might be needed is some good food and some fresh air and some nature and some calm and some peace. But instead, you become this kind of vegetable and you're so exhausted that you stay in bed and eat crappy food and watch terrible TV shows. And we feel justified in this because we've done so much of the work that we supposedly absolutely must do. But again, it's just sitting at the opposite end of the spectrum from where you've been super productive. Now you're not productive at all. So we need to be aware of this, aware of what we're doing and our actions and our thoughts, and look for the balance. The balance is the aim. As soon as you go to one extreme and make that your target, you are creating the opposite. Like if you're going through life searching for extreme good, you are also going to find extreme bad. If you're searching for constant happiness, you are also going to experience the deepest sadness. Any time that you are going to an extreme, the opposite must exist. And that is just duality. That is the nature of our universe and this existence. So instead of striving for one end of the spectrum or the other, strive for balance. Thank you for listening.